What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. Want to give a huge shout out to the Hashgraph Association as well as Hedera for supporting these podcasts. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the weeds with secure access into kind of the digital asset landscape with Valour. Valour has, multiple different ways to gain exposure through, to Bitcoin, Ethereum, HBAR, multiple digital assets through their regulated exchange traded products, which are easily accessible via brokerage. Not financial advice on our end, as I'll preface it that way, but we have Johanna, who is the head of Nordics at Valour, with us today. And I always like to start these out with a little intro. So Johanna, if you could give us a background of yourself, kind of your role within Valour, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. So I'm Johanna Belits. I am head of Nordics for Valour, and I'm quite new into the crypto space. I've been with Valour for 3 years, and when I started, I came from traditional finance. So my previous work was for BNP Paribas, and we were doing leveraged ETPs for the Nordic markets. So kind of the same products, but not in the crypto world.
So, I'm curious, like, just your experience, like, before we kind of move directly into Valour as well, like, BNP Paribas is obviously a huge entity. Like, what was your experience like there? And then how does that kind of prepare you to lead into, like, the digital asset landscape as well? Are there similarities, and where are some of the differences, I guess?
I mean, the similarities is in the products, right? Because they're structured. It's not exactly the same product, but it's a similar product. So it's more of the knowing the landscape for how to, break into the market and how to talk to the people who are investors and how to distribute the product. So it comes more. I mean, the crypto part for me was. I of course I knew what it was, but it was new in the sense that I didn't have a deeper interest when I started. So I came from knowing the product and how this works, and then I got pretty deep into the rabbit hole that crypto is, and I learned a lot, and I now love this environment. So.
Well, I think one of the things that you and I were talking about even before this interview is just, enabling access and really kind of doing the groundwork to educate people on the digital asset landscape. So I would love if you could maybe give us a breakdown of Valour's core mission and how that mission is evolving as the digital asset space matures.
Yeah, so Valour is really positioning itself between the crypto world and investments. So what we do is that we allow for people who are not, crypto savvy. We give them a very easy way to put crypto into their regular portfolio. So I mean, in the US, it's a similar thing with the ETFs that launched last year. We have had in Europe for almost 10 years already these kinds of products.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, so where do you see, I guess, some like the big obviously thing right now in the US is like the ETF aspects, but ETPs, like you said, have been live for so long. What has kind of that experience been like as far as like getting ETP adoption kind of out there into the wild? Like, and what, I guess, in the context of the US, what would you expect to maybe happen? Just of your own opinion, like in the US, like, would you expect ETFs to start going live? And when that does happen, where's kind of the cascade effect that comes off the back end of that?
I mean, I think so. It gives a lot of mainstream adoption. It gives, the access to an asset class that is, I mean, to be honest, it's complicated for a person who is not deeply interested in crypto, how to get, exposure to Bitcoin or to other digital assets. And what the ETFs and on Europe side, the ETP does is that it makes it easier for someone to, you don't have to manage a wallet or custody or any of these things, but you can just go into your regular brokerage account, buy an ETP, and in this way get exposure to the digital assets.
I think it's cool. Like, I was doing some digging, and you mentioned, where the European markets are at in comparison to the US. The first Bitcoin exchange traded product was launched in 2015, I believe, by the founder of Valour, not in Valour, but in a different company. But so that's pretty interesting to kind of be like leading before even like all the initiatives within Valour kind of occurred. So that I thought that was a pretty cool kind of fact there. So
yeah, I mean, it's a cool story. We have the one of the guys who were the first to launch exchange traded product on Bitcoin is now the founder of Valour. So it's and that was already in 2015. So it's, I mean, almost a decade back.
I think another thing that I find pretty interesting right now, and I mentioned this before we went live, is that there's just been so much adoption over the past 12 to 18 months that it's really hard to keep track of. I do think that platforms that give people access into the landscape right now kind of are at a competitive advantage compared to like what might be coming down the pipeline for just how much adoption we see in the digital asset space. What is the competitive landscape right now for, products that surround themselves with digital assets? Like, how do you guys have a lot of competitors? How do you guys stand out in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, I would say it's a quite mature market by now. So we are several competitors who are doing similar products. What we are doing at Valour is that we have the width. I mean, we have a lot of altcoins. HBAR was one of the first ones outside of the top 10 that we launched. But since then, we have launched 20 more on the altcoin side. So we are truly unique in that. We also have, so for our Bitcoin and Ethereum product, we have launched them without management fees, which makes it, if you hold over a long time, it actually makes a difference if you don't pay the fees that you do when you invest in these kinds of products.
And I know, like, in that vein too, like I kind of looking at the landscape right now, the cat's kind of out of the bag when you've got like Franklin Templeton and the BlackRocks of the world kind of not only dipping their toes into the digital asset space, but like directly involving themselves in the space as well. And I always find it interesting, like almost like the relationships of like, what is it? The 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Whenever you can, like, if you can find different movies that Kevin Bacon was in by any 7 movies. BlackRock launched their first Bitcoin ETP on, how do I pronounce it? Is it Zextra or
etc.? I think it's German. I'm not German, but I think they say etc. Yeah.
Do you see, so like that amount of interest, even in some of like, talk about the partners that you guys have, I guess, as far as like the, these different kind of platforms that the ETPs can kind of get listed on, and what that relationship looks like and how you expect that to maybe expand access as well.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, actually. So our partners are, for example, the big exchanges like etc. or Euronext or Spotlight in Sweden, and then you have to go through a broker. So you have to also be close with the broker so that because this is where you buy the actual product. So then you have like the brokers are for Germany, for example, Comdirect, or in Sweden it's Avanza and Nordnet. There's a multitude of those. So this is Euronext, where we have a few products. Börse Frankfurt, we have a lot.
I think it's really interesting, like, too, because I saw a tweet that you guys posted that you're rapidly approaching $1 billion of assets under management, which I think is a pretty crazy accomplishment.
We did have that, but then the market went down a little bit, which impacts our AUM, obviously. So we're a bit further from that now, but yeah, we did have that as a milestone.
What's that journey been like? And I guess, another interesting thing for me is like through a platform like Valour is how do you guys do kind of the due diligence on the different digital assets that may be interesting for you to support?
I mean, we have rules that we have to adhere to. In our base prospectus, for example, there's limitations on which ones we could do, both in like I think now it's in the we could do the top 500, but it has to be with a market cap over, I think it was $100 million or something like this. So we have some sort of base plate, and then obviously we need to see some sort of demand in the market. I mean, we also want to do product that people want to buy, and we need to be able to hedge it properly. So it has to be liquid on the exchanges, etc. So we have that as like guidelines for what we can do.
And I know, in particular, and I see a bunch of them in here. It's actually pretty crazy. Even some that I don't, I feel like are kind of under the radar for some people. And again, not financial advice on my end, but cool to see BitTensor up there. In regards to like HBAR, I know that there's access for ETPs on a few different platforms. So I would love if you could talk about what you guys kind of do in regards to kind of the Hedera ecosystem, what your kind of goals are, and where some of the access, the accessible platforms kind of lie.
So this was, I think I said it right in the beginning, but this was one of the first, like, altcoins that we did. So if you go outside of the top 10, and we launched the first one, it's almost a year ago, and that was in Germany. And now we have one product in the Nordics and one on Euronext. And we did it together with the Hashgraph Association, with the support as well. And I mean, it's been a very popular product. We have the current AUM for the products combined is around $11 million, which is, I mean, it's not even a year. So it's been a popular product. There's been a real demand for it. And yeah, our role for us, we give a lot of attention to the project, sorry. And we also, this is the role of Valour as well, is to bring all of these assets into more of knowledge for like, I want to say regular people, you know what I mean? Not the crypto people, but the regular people, so that they also get a chance to, get that interest and look deeper into it, and also then invest in the products.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to kind of bridging the gap. I think, one of the pain points that I see in Web3 is that's from like a technology standpoint and just a lot of other factors. It's like there's all this crazy innovation, but still 90 to 95% of the mass populace just aren't here yet. And it's like, are they going to care about all the underlying technology when blockchain and DLT are actually adopted? So I guess, that's kind of a question that I always like to ask is like, how do you see the ETPs that you guys are facilitating kind of bridging that gap for normal people?
Yeah. Well, you can. So I like to see it, look at it this way, that you can always look at the speculating in the price for whatever token is going up in value or down in value. But then you can also look at what the blockchains are actually doing, or the projects are trying to do, and you can also see that there is some real problems that they're solving in a decentralized way. And I think for us, we sit on the side where you like to take, get some economic interest out of it, but that's not all of the story. That there's a lot going on that is interesting for people to learn about as well.
I think too, I'm assuming that the clientele on a Euronext or Börse Frankfurt is a little bit different than the clientele like on a crypto exchange or on something like that too. So that I'm sure immediately kind of is just, it removes I think crypto gets siloed with some of like the mentality. You and I were talking about this before, like crypto Twitter is like the Wild West. Like, that's not the way that traditional individuals that are engaging with, I'm assuming, a Börse Frankfurt or some of these other different platforms are necessarily, the way that they kind of are. So I think that's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah.
I would love, we talked about kind of the decision-making process. Like, I guess, the biggest thing here for like getting people interested in the digital asset space, obviously, is there's a huge education gap as far as what's actually going on. I could look at like mainstream media and you see like super polarizing things that are purely kind of surrounding themselves around hype-driven narratives. But all the real world stuff that's going on doesn't necessarily get talked about. And I would love if you could touch base on just how you guys address the challenges of educating and onboarding both retail and institutional investors.
Yeah, so we of course, we talk about everything also as a potential way to, diversify your portfolio or to get. So this is like the angle we look at it. But so with HBAR, for example, we did a couple of things that were quite nice, which was to invite, people from the Hashgraph Association and have small educational events or talk to them and, explain to them what is special with Hedera, how is this working, why is it different from other, or why is it different from a blockchain, the DLTs and so on. So we're trying to also bring that interest into the knowledge of people, because this, as you said, there's a lot of polarizing opinions out there, and maybe you don't really look at the real value of a product and what they're actually doing because of that.
I guess to kind of step back a little bit, like, what are your thoughts in general on this space? From where do you see kind of the technology going from an adoption standpoint? Just kind of in general, like you said you've been in the digital asset space for about 3 years at this point in time. What's it been like? And I'm sure you've learned quite a bit. You said at the beginning of this, you kind of dove deep down the rabbit hole. Like, what's that been like for you? And where do what are some of the things you've learned, and where do you think that this space ends up going? I guess from your personal opinion standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still down there trying to learn a lot of things, but I mean, this is a fantastic example, I think, with what they're doing with Hedera and the connections they have to the big companies, and that everyone has a use case and everyone runs a node, and these kinds of things that it doesn't get talked about a lot. And there is like several real use cases for blockchain technology, or for tracking. Now I don't remember on top of my head, but for emission rights, for example, or kind of all of these things. And I find that really, really interesting, beyond just speculating on the value of something. And then, I mean, if we talk about Bitcoin, that's another story. But if we talk about all the altcoins, and I find that, I mean, in several of the other projects as well, Bitensor you named with AI, for example, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I would love if you could just talk about some of the milestones. I know we mentioned the 900 million that was over $1 billion assets under management, but I'm sure, as most other platforms in this space, you guys have a lot of stuff kind of cooking up for 2025. But I would love if you could tell us some of the biggest things that stick out to you milestone-wise leading up to today, and what you're excited about kind of for the future of Valour.
Yeah, I mean, we're on a exciting path in general. I can't disclose any of the things that we will do, but we have been. So last year, for example, we did a very big thing where we launched 20 ETPs in one go, in one day, and that was a lot of firsts and a lot of altcoins. Then obviously, you can see this is the announcement there on our X account. So that was really cool. We will be doing maybe not exactly this, but many other exciting things. And I mean, if we look at the crypto world in general, it's been, the past year has been very, very, say, significant, with everything that has been going on, from Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs to the halving, to the election in the US, and the new stance of the US on crypto in general. And I think all of this, of course, the first gainer of this will be Bitcoin, but I think that the altcoins will also have their fame going up, just of general acceptance, and that you look at and talk about crypto in a way that you didn't a few years back.
What are some of the I mean, I see on here just the site too, because I know we have a little bit of time left here. As far as enterprise services are concerned, like, what are some of the things, like, how do you engage with enterprises when they're interested kind of in the digital asset landscape? What are some of those conversations like? Have you seen an uptick in interest more recently than you kind of saw in the past?
I no, not really. There's not a big difference. I can talk a little bit about this with Bitcoin Swiss. We did a product together with Stocks, where the two of them have found an index. So it's an index product. and that we then did an ETP on. So that's very interesting case as well. Otherwise, I think it's more or less the same. We will see more institutional interest the more accepted it gets to invest in digital assets. So with the Bitcoin ETFs in the US, that is obviously a big opener for also institutional investors everywhere to start digging deeper into crypto assets.
I see you guys are doing like some pretty deep reports as well. What are these kind of entail, and what do you guys kind of try to put together on these as far as the products that you guys offer and the reports that you guys are putting together as well? It looks like in collaboration with Reflexivity Research.
Exactly. So this is one of our sister companies. We are both owned by a company called DeFi Technologies, which is it's listed on a Canadian exchange. And so they own both us and Reflexivity. Reflexivity is a research company that was founded by Will Clemente and Anthony Pompliano. So this is a way that we are trying to give that little extra for investors if they really want to dig deep into the nitty-gritties of the altcoins or Bitcoin for that matter. Then we provide that so that they can read about it.
Awesome. Well, I would love if you could lead us out. I mean, any forward-looking statements that you have, like what you're excited about within inside of Valour, and then kind of for the wider distributed ledger space or within Hedera, just kind of in general, that would be fantastic. And I know we're running a little bit short, but I think we got through quite a bit. But yeah, forward-looking statements, what you're excited about for the future, and yeah, really appreciate your time today, Johanna.
No, but I think like everyone else, I'm super excited about what's going on in the US, what's going to be, the next steps. Is it going to be a strategic reserve with Bitcoin? Is it going to be all of these things? How is it going to be, are they going to acquire more or all these things? I see it as very positive for the ecosystem as a whole. For us, I mean, we have a lot of nice things going on, which I can't talk more about, but I'm very excited. I mean, it's a good time for us. We had with the bull run that started this autumn, it was quite the frenzy on also for our products. Now it has calmed down a little bit because of the current situation where everything is a little bit uncertain, but we still see like steady inflows and high interest, and it's a fun time to work in crypto.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an interesting point too, as far as crypto historically has these kind of 4-year hype cycle type things, and I'm curious just from your stance, like I do see that there's obviously entities and networks and platforms that are way more focused on kind of the long-term growth of this space and the sustainability of this space as more and more adoption occurs. And what are your thoughts on that? Just kind of as far as like the outlook, like hype cycles versus like long-term kind of growth, and how you guys kind of support that.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak about it really from an investment point of view, I guess. I see in the pattern of our investors that they are long-term, is a lot of buying and holding, which I think is, it's if we talk about more about investing in digital assets, it's it's volatile, it's difficult, and a good strategy could be to acquire little by little over time and sit and not try to time the market. So I mean, this is a pattern that we see with investors, which is that makes me happy, because that's a reasonable way to invest in, and I think that also builds for the longevity of everything for us, is that our investors invests in a good way, which in the long term is good for everyone.
Where do you recommend people go to learn a little bit more about Valour? I see the site up here, and then I know that you guys are present on Twitter and X as well. Is there anywhere else you recommend that people will go to?
No, I guess this is, I mean, our website is covering everything with all our products, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure to drive people to go to valour.com to learn more about how Valour is supporting secure access into the digital asset landscapes. And give these guys a follow on X as well at Valour Funds. And I think the parent company, DeFi Tech Global, as well. The reflexivity research aspects are pretty interesting too. You can go in and check out all of their research reports that are just free for anybody to look at on their site for multiple different digital assets. Want to give a huge shout out to the Hashgraph Association for helping us to put these together alongside Hedera. And Johanna, I want to thank you for your time today as well.
Thank you.
And let's definitely do this again. I know that there's a lot of stuff that you couldn't get into today, but when you guys announce some stuff, feel free to give us a shout. We'd love to have you back on again in the future.